What's up, you goofball? Fight Monk is back, here to talk about UFC Vegas 32, Dillashaw versus Cory Sandhagen. And let's get right into it. So, TJ Dillashaw coming back after a 2-year layoff, PED suspension for taking EPO, comes back and gets the questionable split decision over Cory Sandhagen. To me, it seemed like Dillashaw did the right things to convince the judges that he had won the fight. And also, Cory Sandhagen was doing very questionable things that were not very good for the optics. But we'll get into that more in a second. So, was it a good decision? In my opinion, I could see a case for the decision for Dillashaw. I personally had it 3-2 Cory Sandhagen, but TJ Dillashaw did make a good showing in the last round when it seemed like the rounds were tied up. I think I had TJ possibly winning the first round, Cory definitely getting the second round, TJ getting the third round, and Cory getting the fourth round with that nice spinning back fist at the very end of the round, and then it was all up to the fifth round. I thought TJ showed more initiative in that round, and I thought that Cory probably landed better damage in that round. So in the actual scoring criteria, damage is supposed to be scored higher than octagon control and positional control, but if the damage is even, then control starts to come into play. I think the damage was close, but I still think Cory did more damage in the fifth round. So I would probably still give Cory the fifth round, but I could totally see how you'd score TJ to win that last round just because of every single time TJ would pressure Cory to the fence and shoot him for a takedown, Cory would immediately show his back to TJ, and then TJ would just have a dominant position on him. He would literally have his back, which is a really bad position to have, even though I know technically that's not a bad position for Cory in this case because he knew what he was doing and he was using that to fight the grips. He would turn his back, he would fight TJ's grips around the front of him, and then he would turn and spin out to the center of the octagon. But in those exchanges where Cory would just show his back to TJ and TJ would just hold him for a decent amount of time, it looked bad for the judges, and I think TJ did a good job of making sure that he was showing more control than Cory was in the entire fight. Even in the rounds that he lost, he was still showing initiative and walking forward, and you never know with these judges. They're supposed to judge based off of damage first, and after damage, or once damage is even, then you score off of control and positional control, things like that. But in this case, TJ did a better job of convincing these judges, who I guess are still scoring off of the old system. So TJ got the win. I'm not mad about it, honestly. Like, Cory was an exciting prospect, and it would have been very interesting to see how he matched up with Petr Yan, who I still think is the champion of the division, even though he did foul and, he lost his belt, rightfully so. But I don't think they should have given his belt to Aljamain Sterling just for taking a knee to the face while he was grounded. So anyway, I see Yan as the champion still, and Cory versus Yan would have been an awesome stylistic matchup. And I think Cory might be the hardest guy to fight in the whole division besides Yan. But I'm not mad about it because TJ Dillashaw versus Petr Yan is also a very interesting fight and definitely a winnable fight for TJ Dillashaw. I also think that TJ Dillashaw kind of destroys Aljamain Sterling. I don't think Sterling really has anything for him. TJ's style is pretty much made to beat Aljamain Sterling, who is a grappler mostly, not really a great wrestler, and TJ has really good takedown defense, and TJ's striking is definitely better than Aljamain Sterling's. And also TJ has better cardio and better strength, basically better everything except for maybe hit the jiu-jitsu, but TJ can do everything that Sterling can't to get it to the ground. I think TJ followed a really good game plan. Pressure, show the judges that you're showing the initiative, kick the leg, which may or may not have shown a weakness in Cory Sandhagen's style. I don't know if this is going to be a consistent weakness of his or not, but it seems like it was bothering him every single time TJ threw a kick. I think maybe he only checked maybe one kick out of the at least 20 that TJ threw. But yeah, TJ did a good job of pressuring, kicking the legs, shifting in combinations to be able to get to Cory Sandhagen because Cory's so long. He has to shift in like Dustin Poirier to be able to reach him. I thought Cory Sandhagen actually fought a good fight too. I just don't know if conceding octagon control was the best idea for this, just because you never know how these judges are going to score fights. And you always have to take into account that they might be scoring off of the old criteria, even though it's literally their job not to. It's literally their job to judge the correct way, which is based on damage first. But you can't take that chance on a fight this important. And I think Cory did the wrong thing here by assuming that the judges would give him more points and an advantage over TJ just because he was maybe landing a few more strikes than TJ was throughout the rounds. Whereas TJ would get close in strikes with Cory, but TJ would also have minutes of control time where Cory just had his back turned to him for whole minutes on end. And I see how that's your way of fighting the grips, is turning your back, but it also doesn't look great for the judges. So if fighting the hands does not work right away, then don't keep your back turned like that and just keep conceding control to TJ Dillashaw. I think Cory could have at least tried to keep the fight in the center of the octagon where he would have had a better chance of sprawling on takedowns, or even try to pressure TJ, who would have had to then defend your shots and also try to hit reactive takedowns, which he is very good at. But if you've got him reactively shooting on you, then you have a better chance of defending it because you could possibly see it coming. I think Cory did a good job at jabbing TJ. Actually, TJ's head movement was giving Cory a little bit of trouble with the jab. He was still landing it pretty consistently. I think Cory bases all of his offense off of his jab a lot of times, and he'll double up, triple up on the jabs, and a lot of times he uses that to set up other strikes and build off of that over time. But in this fight, TJ was doing a good job of moving his head around a lot when he would approach Cory. So Cory couldn't land the jab as much, and he couldn't build as much. He would still land the jab consistently, but it wasn't enough to build more strikes off of it. Instead, what he had to do was he would have to throw in flashy stuff every so often to try to take back the rounds, which at some points actually got him in trouble because he tried to throw this crazy flying knee or this crazy spinning back kick, stuff like that, and then TJ ends up catching you and throwing you on the ground, and then you're on your back for another 2-3 minutes, and that just doesn't look good for the judges, even if you are working from the back. I would say TJ did good at being a veteran and showing that he's not done. Also, his chin is insane. His chin held up so well. He took several flying knees flush to the face and then would just grab Cory and just dump him on the ground. He also took a spinning back fist or two. He also took several hard punches. Just tough guy. Coming off of a suspension for 2 years, 35 years old in the bantamweight division, I did not expect him to be this durable and his cardio to be this good. But he looked pretty much like the prime version of himself until his knee got jacked up in that first round, and then he was kind of fighting off of a ruined knee. So what happened was Cory threw his flying knee, then landed. TJ grabbed him in the air, and then somehow Cory got him into a reverse triangle with his legs, and TJ had to try to fight out of it. And when he did start fighting out of it, he had to stand over him and try to drop punches. And when he was dropping punches, Cory grabbed a leg, and TJ said after the fight that he got careless, and that is what caused him to pop his knee somehow. And so that affected TJ, but eventually he just started not caring how the leg was hurting him at all, and he just started shifting again and doing his usual angles and stuff like that. TJ's athleticism didn't seem gone either. He honestly seemed like he was just as athletically prime as Cory in this fight. Cory seemed like Cory was never like an amazing athlete or anything, but he's younger than TJ, so they seem like they were kind of on the same playing field now that TJ's athleticism has receded a little bit. This does wonders for TJ's career. TJ is now taking Cory Sandhagen's spot at number 2 in the division, right under Petr Yan. Cory Sandhagen is now ranked number 3, and then under him is Rob Font and Jose Aldo. Just stacked top 5. Now TJ, he could sit out and just wait for the title shot and wait for Petr Yan and Aljamain Sterling to sort their stuff out, and he would get the next title shot against whoever wins that fight. But TJ said that he might take a fight in between, which I don't buy. I know he was trying to act like he could stay active, but I don't see why he would, especially with a messed up knee like that. I think he might have to get actually, he is going to get surgery. I just found out he's actually getting surgery. I think he tore his MCL, so that might take a while to recover from. This doesn't hurt Cory Sandhagen's stock really at all. He's still ranked number 3. He's still pretty much the most dangerous guy in the division. I would probably say him and TJ are probably even, like as far as ability and threat to the title, but someone's got to be ranked above the other, so Cory is now ranked below TJ. And I think Cory would do good to fight Rob Font. I think that is a winnable fight for him, and I think Cory's creativity on the feet would get him the win. Honestly, I think Cory probably beats most people in this division. I don't know about the Aljamain Sterling thing. That's still a questionable thing because it's been a minute since their first fight where Aljamain Sterling absolutely destroyed him, took him down, and just submitted him immediately because Cory Sandhagen gives up his back so much. So it's terrible thing to do to a great grappler like that. Cory may have improved in that area, and Cory could probably beat most people in this division, and I think TJ probably could also. I think TJ could probably beat almost everyone in this division, except for maybe Yan. Yan is a maybe, and that's why that fight is so interesting. I think TJ is definitely future champ material because he is not only in his pretty much prime form that he was before, but he is now showing veteran qualities, and I think that is a very good sign for his potential to beat Yan. Also, his chin is insane. Oh yeah, and then finally, the best part of all this was you had Dominick Cruz commentating a fight between Cory Sandhagen and TJ Dillashaw. And of course, you had to have Dominick Cruz say in there somewhere that ring rust isn't real and that TJ just proved that ring rust isn't real. And to that, I would say, Dominick Cruz, you are full of shit. Ring rust is real. It's just that when you are that experienced and have that much, when fighting comes that naturally to you now that you've been fighting for so long, I don't think it takes as much to get back to your old form that you've always fought at. I think that it's just trained into you forever. Once you've had a certain amount of fights and a certain amount of octagon time and training camps. It was so funny how Dominick Cruz on the broadcast had to tell us how ring rust is not real. It's never been a thing, and I proved it. And look, TJ's proving it right now. Also, Cormier was just awful. Like, he was the worst. I think at one point he even said, "I don't even know what I'm watching. I don't even see anything." When they had to correct him on something, I can't remember what it was. He's the one doing color commentary. Brendan Fitzgerald is the one doing play-by-play, and somehow Brendan Fitzgerald is constantly correcting Daniel Cormier about his own job, about color commentary. I think the only thing Cormier does well is make it a lighter mood for everyone. Sometimes that can be a bad thing because if you got Joe Rogan on there with Cormier, it is the absolute worst. Like, I have to literally mute the commentary because all they do is joke around the whole time. It's like, I don't think Joe Rogan will ever have to have Daniel Cormier on his podcast, just because they literally do a JRE experience every single time they're on the booth together, and it is absolutely insufferable. But yeah, that was a great fight. I think that both guys showed that they are the absolute number one guys in the division. One of them had to win, and I think that TJ and Cory are both future champion material. I know TJ's already been champion, but I could totally see him winning that belt again. In the co-main event, you had Kyler Phillips. I don't know about halting his hype, but like delaying the hype on him, because in his last fight, he showed to be like a striking virtuoso against Song Yadong. And I think the hype on that was a bit overstated, because Song Yadong was from Team Alpha Male, and we all know how their striking tends to be. But anyway, Kyler Phillips fighting a really hard fight against Raulian Paiva, and Raulian Paiva ends up winning the fight somehow. I thought Kyler either won or it was a draw, because Kyler literally dropped Paiva like 4 times in the first round, and then the next 2 rounds Paiva probably won those, and so it was probably a draw, but somehow Paiva got the decision, so whatever. Darren Elkins doing his Darren Elkins thing, where he gets absolutely destroyed in the first round. He gets out of like 5 submissions. He gets his face beat in for a while, very bloody. And then he waits until you get tired, because he's a punching bag. And then once you get tired, he turns the fight around and just decides to finish you. And every time he does this, it's hilarious, because the broadcast freaks out. They do like this big interview for him, and he does this super motivational speech, and you can't help but feel happy for the guy. Before that, Macy Barber picking up an absolutely undeserved win over Miranda Maverick. Miranda Maverick destroying her in the first round, outstriking her, out-grappling her too. Basically beating her in every single possible way, until she started to get tired in like the later part of the second round. But I still think she did so much in that second round to still win Maverick the round. But Macy Barber pushed really hard in the third round and probably won the third round, but she did not win the first or second rounds. But somehow the judging that night was awful, so they gave her that fight. And before that, Adrian Yanez picked up an insanely entertaining KO over Randy Costa, where it looked like Randy Costa was on his way to defeating Yanez. He was jabbing him up like crazy. Looked like he had his number, really. He had a wide, like kind of James Krause-ish stance. He was like throwing a lot of jabs and straight punches. Adrian Yanez was confused, and then I think Randy Costa threw like over 100 strikes in the first round. Wore himself out. Yanez turned the fight around and finished him. Once he figured out that Randy Costa was tired, Adrian Yanez absolutely turned it up and finished him. That was very entertaining. Brendan Allen outstruck Soriano, who was supposed to be a striker and a knockout hitter, but Brendan Allen, the wrestler, outstruck Soriano, so that was a bad look. Mickey Gall got a first-round submission over a guy that is 9-5 in his professional MMA career, which means that this guy was definitely from the regional scenes, and he was definitely made for Mickey Gall to look good. The UFC also brought in a random 4-1, I guess she was 4-0 at the time, fighter from the regional scenes to fight Sajara Eubanks to make Sajara's record not look so bad. Because before it was 7-6, and she's supposed to be some hot prospect. So they gave her an easy fight, and now her record is 8-6. So good job. You're going to eventually get your record up to being a 500 fighter if you keep beating randoms from the regional scene. And that's about it. It was a really good night of fights. The main card was very entertaining. I know everyone probably doesn't watch all the fights like me, but I had a lot of fun. And if you watched the fights that I told you to watch, then you probably had a good time. So I will catch you guys on the next one.